Hollywood and Bollywood may rule, but for one fortnight a year, attention reverts back to the nation that invented motion pictures. Dateline, the French Riviera, and the 69th Cannes Film Festival, where the race to the Golden Palm is but a scene in a script that features a potent mix of stargazing and deal-making, where shameless promotion meets high art, where struggling art house filmmakers rub elbows with Hollywood high rollers. Why does Cannes matter so much? Why do movies matter so much? Beyond the box office, there's the enduring appeal and influence of what the French like to call the seventh art. Just how strong is cinema's soft power? Today in the France 24 debate, big screen, high stakes, we're talking about Cannes with France 24 film critic Lisa Nesselson. It's day 8 for her on the French Riviera. Alongside her, Lebanese director Cyril Haris, who is in Cannes as producer of the short film Submarine. Many thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And joining us here in the studio, novelist, filmmaker Aurélie Lévy, who turned her experience in Hollywood into a novel, My Life for an Oscar, it's called. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Lisa Nesselson, what is the recipe for a good Cannes, and does this year's edition fit the bill?
Oh, well, if there's a recipe, it's still percolating on somebody's stove. Every year is different. How could it not be? The film festival, any film festival for that matter, is made up of films that happen to have been completed at the time that the festival is being held, and whose producers or directors or crews are interested in having them in that festival. So those are already parameters that have to be answered. Here in Cannes, the rule is for the competition, it must be a world premiere. The only exception to that is the film can have come out in your own country. This year, the only person in that case is Spain's Pedro Almodovar. His film is in Spanish cinemas right now, and anyone can go and see them. But the recipe for a good festival, to me, it's incredibly silly that people are already writing articles in the trade press about who's going to win. First of all, they're not on the jury. Our opinion really doesn't matter. And they still have a number of movies to see. So it's a roller coaster. There have been years where the very last film out of 20 or 21 went on to win the Golden Palm, and everyone was exhausted and had skipped it and didn't even know what they were talking about. There are great divides between the French critics and the rest of the world sometimes, and a film that English speakers think is a masterpiece, French people are turning their noses up at, and vice versa. So I wish I could give you a recipe, but it's kind of like the thing about if we knew what made a good film, then no one would set out to make anything but that, and every film would be a success, which is, of course, far from what happens in the real world.
All right, I'm not gonna let you get away with it that easily, Lisa. What would you say so far, and you've seen all of the movies in competition, what would you say so far about the crop that's there and about the stars that have come out? Has this been a good Cannes?
Has it been a good Cannes? For me personally, yeah, absolutely. There are hardly any movies that I really disapprove of or roundly disliked or wish I was somewhere else while I was watching them, and there have been quite a few that I liked a lot. Of course, what the Holy Grail is a masterpiece, a masterwork for the ages, but none of us know whether a movie is going to stand the test of time until the time goes by. And there have been instances here where a movie gets a 10-minute or a 15-minute standing ovation and everyone thinks it's going to be a huge commercial success, but for whatever reason, from people just not being interested in the subject matter to a botched release, that doesn't happen. And there have been little sleeper films that nobody saw coming. You know, when an editor says to me, well, I want interviews with, you know, important stars, important people, you have to remember that everybody who's famous today was completely obscure and unknown at some point. The first time Quentin Tarantino, now a household word, came to this festival, he gave an interview to, the mimeographed newsletter from the local high school because he was so eager to get his message out to the world and his excitement about being a filmmaker. That paid off for him. For other people, being very aloof, giving very few interviews, making yourself kind of untouchable, that's a recipe that can pay off. But personally, I'm happy I came. There are a few moments I would have been very sorry to have missed. There's an American film by Jeff Nichols, a very prolific young American director who's made, I think, 5 films in as many years, with Loving, the true story of an interracial couple in the state of Virginia who were actually breaking the law in 1958 by getting married. Their case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it took a long time. But now, of course, we look back and we say, that is ludicrous. But the law in the state of Virginia actually said that God put people with different colors skin on different continents, and that meant that he didn't mean for them to mingle. The children of such a union were considered to be bastards. You look around in an increasingly globalized, interracial, biracial universe, and you think, how was that ever the way everyone thought? So this is a story that reminds us of the not-so-distant past and how far we've come. I loved it.
All right, the Cannes Film Festival there, and Lisa describing how you really have to push to get your name out when you're not known. Cyril Haris, what's your Cannes experience been like? Have you been hustling?
Well, yeah, I've been working a lot because I'm here with a short film, right? So, for every filmmaker, the goal is always Cannes is always the goal for every aspiring and serious filmmaker. Cannes, it's always about Cannes. This is where the finest movies get shown. Now, here for me specifically, being here with a short film, it helps me a lot to attract funds to make a feature film. So here I'm in with the short film Submarine, a Lebanese short film that's competing in the Cine Fondation category of the official selection. And basically, the first prize is a guarantee that your first feature is going to be shown at the Cannes Film Festival. Now, that is huge. That is absolutely huge for an aspiring filmmaker who's trying to get money to make a first feature.
People are of two minds when it comes to Cannes. Of course, those who see it from the outside think, wow, this is great. You must be going to all these parties with all these famous movie stars. Has that been the case?
It's a trap. It's a big trap. I thought, I've been watching Cannes on the outside, and I thought it was all about the movies. But when you actually have a movie here, you don't really have time to watch movies. Basically, you gotta either network, party, or watch films, and that's like 3 streams that have like their own life cycles, and you gotta choose 2 out of 3. So it's either you're gonna be networking and watching movies, or networking and partying. But there's just no time for you to work and watch films, which is really sad because I came here. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm going to be watching all the Cannes films. I'm going to be watching probably the best films of this year because every time when I catch the Cannes movies, I'm like, okay, they really show the best films of the year. And now I'm kind of sad because I've only watched 2 or 3 films, fantastic films, especially the Sierra Nevada, the Romanian film that I absolutely loved.
All right, Cyril Haris describing the experience of coming to Cannes with that short film Submarine. Even the great Steven Spielberg, who's been coming to Cannes since 1974 and the film The Sugarland Express, he told our own Jeannie Godula he gets butterflies still when he comes.
I was nervous boarding the airplane to get here. I was nervous getting off the plane. I was nervous coming to the Carlton. I was very nervous when I got out of the car with all the glitterazzi, and then of course once we got to the top of the red carpet, I felt right at home here in Cannes.
Do you believe him when he says he's nervous, Steven Spielberg?
Of course, and yeah, absolutely. Everybody is, especially the big stars, and they,
It's a strange place, isn't it, Cannes?
Yeah, it's very bizarre. One thing that nobody's mentioned so far, Cannes is very big because it's also a huge market. It's a time of the year where buyers and sellers get together and where a lot of business is done. And that remains the core reason why it's such a powerful festival, is because all the film professionals actually get together and come. So it's a time to show movies, of course, but also to do a lot of business. And it's remained a time where all the professionals actually show up, which is why it's been able to sustain itself all those years.
Aurélie Lévy, you're a French person who went to work in Hollywood.
Yes.
And when you're there, there's a bit of, how should we say, a bit of rivalry between the French way of making movies and the American way of making movies. That rivalry, do you sense that Cannes is sort of the neutral turf where they meet?
You know, I don't think there is a rivalry. I think there is both countries have their identity in terms of filmmaking. I think France is probably one of the only countries in the world that has its own film industry. I mean, other countries make movie, but they don't have an industry as important as the French film industry. And one of the reasons the French industry exists is because every time you go see an American film, the part of the price you pay for the ticket goes to sponsor French film. So fighting the American hegemony is the reason the French film industry exists. So I wouldn't talk about rivalry. They actually, you know, serve a purpose indirectly. But there's a maybe cultural rivalry, maybe. The big budget, commercial, happy ending movie versus some, you know, I don't know. But I'm being really, I don't know. That would be a little cliche.
Well, let me bring in Lisa Nesselson on this because, Lisa, I had one reporter describe to me Hollywood executives ordering Coca-Cola with their 3-star meals at the French restaurants in Cannes and seeing it kind of as a way to show the French that they're not so bad.
Well, I'd like to share an anecdote that may reflect some light on that, about how cinema permeates every aspect of French life. This is my 29th visit to the Cannes Film Festival, and for various reasons, I ended up in the emergency room of the Cannes Hospital the night before the festival started. So there I am at 3 in the morning, lying on my back in a hospital robe with various contraptions hooked up to me. The woman doctor comes in about 3 in the morning, asks me why I'm here, and I say, well, I came to cover the festival for the next 13 days. And she immediately, politely lit into me about how, oh, you people who go to the Cannes Film Festival, the movies you like, they're of no appeal whatsoever to ordinary people like me. And I'm lying there thinking, well, I need her expertise more than she needs mine. But then she went on to say that recently she had watched a film that she knew had been in the competition here last year. She knew it had won a prize. It happened to be a film that I didn't care for one bit, Mon Roi, which won Best Actress for, and the director is a woman, May Wen. And I said, so, you know, lying back, and what did you think of it? And she proceeded to give me an incredibly detailed, thoughtful critique relating it to her own life. She said, yes, I was once in a relationship very much like the one that the lead actress has with the character played by Vincent Cassel. I thought the photography was good. I didn't mind the score, etc., etc. So here she is, a physician by profession, but I'd like to bring up something the late François Truffaut said, which was, everyone in France has 2 professions, their own and film critic. And at 3 in the morning in the Cannes Hospital, I had the best proof of that one could wish for.
All right, one reaction coming in on the hashtag F24 debate. I don't really get Cannes envy. Of all the major film festivals, it may be the one I'm least interested in. Cyril Haris, are you starstruck in Cannes, or do you agree with that viewer?
I mean, you know, of course, Cannes is not the only film festival. Berlin is an amazing film festival, and Venice is an amazing film festival. Sundance also is huge in the States, and Toronto. But it kind of like depends on, like, it does. Personal taste plays a factor here. You know, there is some kind of a pattern behind Cannes film. I mean, not so much of a pattern, but like, you know, people tend to prefer one festival over the other. My personal taste goes mostly to Cannes, but I have great admiration for the Berlin Film Festival and the Venice Film Festival because they showcase amazing films. And they're all kind of like competing because you were talking about the world premiere status. Like basically, if you screen at one, you cannot screen at the other. So yeah, I guess it has to do a lot with personal taste.
All right, Cannes, a delicate balancing act between promoting substance and, as you were saying earlier, Cyril Haris, hustling. So yes, the red carpet matters. So says Indian star Aishwarya Rai, who'd come to promote her new film, Sarbiched.
As you saw earlier, I kind of laughed and said, even for today's press call, I've done like the OTT in-the-face gig. But to juxtapose it with serious cinema, I think it's sometimes fun. All of this is just art, as I say. The fashion and all of that is art. And that goes with the turf. I do come with also a cosmetic brand, and but a brand that also is that retains its sensitivity and recognition of women empowerment. So the synergy works for me personally as well. A great mix of women from across the globe as brand ambassadresses, and you see everyone has a strong voice as well. So there is the visual, there is the red carpet, there is the media interaction, and mutually that kind of works out well.
And Aurélie Lévy, it's interesting because Lisa was talking about her emergency room experience a moment ago. And it's true that if you look in the French newspapers for over 2 weeks now, you have all these amazing film reviews. And some of them can be quite high art, even in the mainstream tabloids.
You mean the review itself?
Yeah, as film reviews.
Yeah, but it's what's amazing about France is that they really know film, they really appreciate it. There's a real discourse around it, and they're open to more, complex.
When you worked in Hollywood, was there envy of that French sort of admiration for the seventh art, as we call it?
It was really funny because I think a lot of American movie stars are not very educated and haven't gone to university or anything like that, which is sometimes different in France. And they do have a fascination for French cinema and Truffaut and all that. And it is to them the reference of for quality, but they know they're not going to have maybe the financial rewards that they would get, being in Hollywood. So there's a fascination and ambivalence at the same time.
Cyril Haris, let me ask you, you're presenting here a short film. Do you feel that you're defending the
Correct.
colors of Lebanon when you come, or you're just defending the colors of a movie?
Well, I mean, of course, Submarine specifically is very tied to the Lebanese culture, and it's kind of a love letter, like a love-hate letter to home. It deals a lot with like the complex relationship that the director Mounia Ael has with Lebanon, with her own country. So in a way, I don't promote the film as just a short film. It's of course a Lebanese short film, very much so, and especially that we are looking to develop a first feature, which would also be set in Lebanon, and also because it's kind of a very social film, so that makes it inherently also very tied to the identity and the location where it's shot.
The social messages of film matter. It's something we'll be talking about in part 2 of the debate. I want to thank you, Cyril Haris, for being with us. We'll be back with the rest of our panel here on France 24 when we return to Cannes after the break.